Welcome to another edition of Lex Talk History, a podcast produced in collaboration with WUKY and the Lexington History Museum. Now, here's your hosts, Lexington History Museum Executive Director Mandy Higgins and WUKY's own Alan Lytle.
Lex Talk History, the name of the podcast. Joining me again, of course, is Mandy. How you doing today, Mandy?
I'm well. How are you, Alan?
Very, very well. Here we are. It's May already, and there's a lot of things that happen in May. You know, the Derby, for one, the Oaks. We have Mother's Day, and also graduations and things of that nature. So things are going to be very, very busy, I assume, at the museum.
And you forgot baseball.
Oh, yeah, baseball, too.
How dare you? Yes, May is such an exciting time in the museum, and April was great, of course. We love the race season and having the meet in town. And then we get to look west and remind our friends in Louisville that their race can't exist without our horses. And so we like to talk about that a lot in May.
Oh, yeah.
We're really excited about our partnership with Bites of the Bluegrass and the Willow for our first history mixer, which took place right before the Derby, getting folks ready with some fun and sort of off-the-wall stories of Lexington's connections to the Derby, and, you know, also reinforcing again and again that it is our race,
right?
Just in a different town.
They're born and bred here. They
are.
Race over there.
Correct. And also all the stock footage that you see, that's Bluegrass Farms. Those are ours.
Yeah.
I know. I got to get over it at some point, but it's really May is the time to have that moment for me.
Yeah.
So it has been great. We also are bringing in a new traveling art piece that will complement our intersections. So Christine Kuhn, who's a local artist, received a 250 Lex grant last year and created a number of pieces inspired by the incredible women of Lexington. And so we have a couple of pieces related to Charlotte Dupuis, which also relates to the animated short that we have on display, a piece about Madame Mintel, which relates to our conversation today. And of course, you can't talk about Lexington women without talking about Belle Breezing.
Oh, no.
So there will be a piece that brings Belle's life into the museum for a little while as well. So you can see those when we're open, Thursdays and Fridays, 12 to 4, and Saturdays, 10 to 4. Plus, you know, anytime you want to make an appointment, we will be there and happy to open the doors for you.
Wow, that's great. And now let's get into our topic du jour, and we call that Let's Get Into It.
Yeah, so it's May, and May is a month in Lexington that often coincides with celebrating our diverse and incredible immigrant culture. And we're so excited today to talk to the newest director of Global Lex. But before we bring him on, you know you can't have a history podcast without getting a little bit of context. So I wanted to lay out just a couple of quick things. Lexington, literally from its first day of naming, was a place of immigrants. Folks moving west into what is now Lexington, encountering the indigenous individuals who first made civilization here, came and have left a mark on the city. And we have a few historic, really kind of fun pieces. The dry stack stone fencing that you see throughout the Bluegrass is an import from the Irish and Scottish immigrants who came to Lexington and helped build our deep horse culture and the farming that's a part of that. Those pieces continue to be a huge part of where we are. The maybe most fun story, and it's been on this podcast before, but Lexington at its earliest moments in the early 19th century is home to a world-class French baker.
Yes.
Monsieur Grion on Mill Street. And he worked with a Swedish sous chef. So that space was, a place that from the very beginning we're thinking about how our culture and how food comes together, and Guerin was such a big part of that. And then, of course, we can't really talk about immigration in Lexington in the 19th century without acknowledging that hundreds and thousands of enslaved Africans passed through Lexington, brought their culture to Lexington, and have continued to come. Africans have continued to be a part of Lexington's culture throughout. And today, starting, and our guest will correct me when I'm wrong, but really starting in the mid 20th century, Lexington has become a landing spot, a soft homecoming for immigrant and refugee communities throughout the world, particularly East Africa, the Middle East, and Ukraine. And now we're talking about present things, and I'm a historian. So I'm so excited that Basel Touchan, did I do it right? Yes. Is joining us. He is the newest director of Global Lex, joined the city in January. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your journey here? And then we'll talk a little bit about what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mandy. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the incredible work you've been doing at the Lexington History Museum. And thank you for this platform. If you know me, you know I love to talk. So a podcast is one of my favorite things to do. But yes, my name is Basel Touchan. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm the new executive director at your Global Lex. We are the city's Global Engagement and Immigrant Affairs Center. Sometimes when I take a moment and pause and think about my journey here, and it's, whenever someone asks you, tell me about yourself, it's like, wow, wait a minute, I think I know myself, but who am I? Like, who am I really? One of the many things that I am is a Kentuckian. I've been in Kentucky for close to a decade now. When I first moved here, and this is a story I hear often, it was supposed to be only for 6 months. In a different lifetime ago, it feels. I grew up in Syria. I went to med school, so my background is in healthcare. And then I moved to Lexington at first because my brother, who went through the same journey, had come here to Lexington to do his cardiology fellowship at UK. Came here. Lexington is a very central location. It's a great community, quite affordable. I know we have an affordability crisis, but my first landing spot in the U.S. where I have a lot of family is in Boston. So comparatively speaking, Lexington was a quite affordable and nice place to do that. And so I came here, was studying for my board, started volunteering with the school system, with Kentucky Refugee Ministries, KRM. At the time, to what you were sharing, there was a big influx of newcomers and refugees from the Middle East in particular, from a lot of other places, East Africa as well, but particularly from the Middle East and from my home country of Syria, or my native country of Syria. And I started doing some of that work to give back, break the monotony of studying. We started doing some good work. We were getting results. The district allocated funds to it. The state allocated funds to it. And we started growing and expanding those programs. And then during that time, I became an American citizen. I came out of the closet. And so who I am today was shaped in Lexington. At some point, I was like, you live once, YOLO. This brings me so much joy and fulfillment. I feel like the reason, this sounds a little bit like too much, but I'm here to do this. And I went all in. And so I found myself here. So even though I've been in Kentucky for 10 years, I consider myself a Kentuckian through and through. And that's a story that I encounter every day. I encounter every day at Global Lex. I encounter every day in my personal life. I encounter every day in this beautiful community.
It's it really is. And so I was born in Kentucky, grew up in Northern Kentucky, came to Lexington for college, and would tell you the exact same thing. Who I am is because of this town and what happens here. And so that it's such an incredible piece to stare across two microphones and have that sharing and that.
Absolutely. I remember one of my first Lexington memories. I had gone to Kroger, came back, was in an apartment off Richmond Road, and I was taking my groceries in, and there was a big watermelon that I was holding, and someone who was standing at the bus stop across the parking lot saw me coming in, and she was like, "Oh my God, that's a very good looking watermelon. Where did you get it from?" And I was like, from like Kroger across the street. And then I was like, "Oh wow," just coming from Boston.
Right.
I was like, "Oh wow, people here on the street be striking up a conversation about your watermelon." Like, wow, yeah. But everyone have been so nice, so friendly. I mean, that's a whole other conversation for a whole other day. But, growing up in the Middle East, being an LGBTQ person, I went through, like a journey and a process, finding myself, coming out, stepping away from medicine, coming from a culture that put a high emphasis on your academic and professional achievements, being from a family of doctor, all those things, all those journeys were quite interesting ones. And I cannot imagine having gone through them anywhere but Lexington. I remember just finding community and finding community, small and large, finding community. A lot of the friends who I would see, especially during that time, that I would see weekend in, weekend out, they were hanging out with each other. Sometimes, back in Facebook days. I'm more of an Instagram person these days. But, you'd go on Facebook and you would see pictures of the same group at the same place, just like hanging out and being so close from 10 years ago. And I remember thinking, especially as an immigrant who had to uproot from certain roots, being like, this is so incredible, and this is so beautiful, and this is so nice. And this community is very, how are you, not who are you, which I love. What you do for work is very important, and we have one of the highest academic attainment level in the nation. But whenever you see your friends, whether you're seeing them at Thursday Night Live, or you're seeing them at Keeneland, or you're seeing them at Picnic with the Pops, it's just the individual, not what they do. It's that community that I found so beautiful.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how you introduce that community to newcomers? We hear sometimes, and I think all of Lexington knows this, that once you're in, it is that really welcoming place. But sometimes it's a little hard to get into those conversations. So how do you introduce Lexington to newcomers?
That's such a great way. That's such a great question. I'm sorry. That's such a great question. I think the way, consciously or subconsciously, the way that I introduce Lexington to newcomers is to introduce them to those quintessential Lexington experiences. Earlier, you were just talking about, leading to the Derby, partnering with Basel Bluegrass, and that's such a beautiful way. I love Erin, I love Basel Bluegrass, all the incredible work that they do. Earlier today, I was talking with folks from the World Affairs Council, and they're coordinating a visit of a delegation from Kazakhstan. And I actually told them, if you're thinking of programming, I can hook you up with Basel Bluegrass, because it's a great way to taste the culture, learn the history, see the places. And it's introducing those quintessential Lexington experiences to people. Something we're working on right now is a little bit of a revamped brand identity to Global X. And when we were looking at some of the images that we wanted to incorporate in some of those graphics and some of the brand identity, something I felt strongly about is I wanted something when any single person in this community, when they look at it, whether they're someone like me who found themselves here and been here for 10 years, or someone who's a newcomer who just came in recently, or someone who's a 5th or 6th generation Lexingtonian, look at and see, I see myself here. Some of the pictures and the images that we picked, there was a picture of T.D. Young playing jazz. I mean, you go to TD's every Monday, and it's just the most eclectic, beautiful group of people just dancing and having fun together. We have a picture of downtown on Thursday Night Live, which again, I remember still being here, still having some broken English, and kind of coming there, whether it's Thursday Night Live, whether it's Latino night on Fridays, and just having such an amazing, diverse group of people that are there to experience those quintessential Lexington experiences. The Philharmonic 4th of July concert at Transylvania. Ironically, the other day, I was talking to some folks at the Philharmonic, and I'm like, a lot of the very quintessential Lexington experiences revolve around the Philharmonic. There's that, there's Picnic with the Pops, there's the Christmas concert, there's Christ the King. And so I think it's oftentimes being able, because you're absolutely right. Lexington, if you're not from here, sometimes you do need someone to take you like a little bit under their wings, because there is one of the first questions that sometimes people may ask you is, where did you go to high school?
Right.
And that's because people have such pride in their histories and in their community because we're so community rooted. And so we're always, oftentimes when we ask this question, it's to find those commonalities. So what I try and do, and what we try and do through Global Lex, is building up those experiences where people can find those commonalities. This is going to sound a little bit philosophical, but I firmly believe that we as humans, we're all made of the same cells. We're just like carbons and mitochondria and all the things, and we experience, we navigate the universe through our senses. Food is how we taste the world. Art is how we see the world. Music and languages is how we hear the world. Texture is how we touch the world. And at the end of the day, those feelings that we feel when we hear our music, when we see our art, we're all looking after that feeling. So I hope that part of what Global Lex does is creating those spaces that bring in people together, that help them feel that feeling when they're tasting things, when they're seeing things, when they're dancing, when they're experiencing that. And it's curating those experiences that bring in people together is how we do it. That was a very long way to answer that question.
No, that was perfect. It's exactly the sorts of things that we expect, though I don't know that we've ever said mitochondrial on Lex Talk History.
You get that from your mom.
Yeah. The powerhouse of the cells.
Exactly. See whether you went through your K-12 experience in the Syrian educational system, which was built on the French educational system, or you went through it through the American system in Lexington, Kentucky, that's a common running joke. And I find this often. Before coming to Global Lex, I was with Fayette County Public Schools. And one of the last things I got to do was facilitate an exchange conversation between a group of students who were visiting from South Korea and a group of students from Bryan Station High Schools. And they were both in the arts program. And we did this storytelling, like structured framework that's super beautiful, where you hear about someone's story, then you retell it in the I pronoun. So you kind of put yourself in their shoes, have those feelings, build that empathy. And then at the end, there was some space for unstructured conversations. And as people were talking, as some of those stories, because they were all art students, talking about their favorite Broadway musicals and stuff like that, a lot of the students, the Bryan Station students and the South Korean students, have the same favorite Broadway shows. And again, it's the arts, it's the culture, it's the food that brings us together, right. Or the mitochondria in some cases.
It's incredible. Can you talk to us a little bit about maybe some demographics of the community, and then also I love this partnership with FCPS and what the schools are doing for students that are either first generation or they're immigrants themselves?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. And this is a question that actually I feel very strongly about, because I'm going to share some data with you, but a lot of this data actually come from Fayette County Public Schools. They are our entity that has the most access to the data, and part of that is, going to school is a mandatory requirement. There are certain paperwork that's a requirement to be filled, and so we're able to get some of this data. I would love to see us have more demographic data, economic impact data, a lot of data that are collected from other sources, because most of the data we use does come from the school system. And then there's like an equation that they use it at some national organizations. Different people have different feelings about it, where you take the number of kids in the school system and you multiply by 10, and you get an idea of the size of that group. So oftentimes, quite a few years back, I partnered, ironically, with Global Lex when I was at the schools. And using FCPS data, we were able to build language maps that showed the geographic distribution of different language groups in the city council districts. And the data from it was very interesting. A lot of people assume that Council District 11 is the district that has the highest population. of English learners. According to FCPS data, it's actually the first district.
Oh,
And
fascinating.
I know. And then it was the 12th district. So the 11th district wasn't even in the top two districts based on FCPS data. Now, again, that may skew because those districts have younger populations. So I'd love to have more accurate data. So if anyone is into data, or if you do research at UK and you're listening to this podcast, please reach out to me. I'm at Global Lex. Would love to talk to you. But to go back to your question, because I tend to go on tangents, like you were sharing earlier, some of our newer arrivals, I would say within the past decade, 2 decades, have brought in a lot of Africans to our community. We have one of the largest African, especially East African Congolese populations in the whole country. And again, it's a testament to how incredible this community is, how fertile the ground is for community organizing, that we have an incredible organization like the Marafiki Center, who is truly a leader in how immigrant-led, community-based organizations can look like. They have mentorship programs, they have cultural programs, they run Swahili days. They recently started a whole language access arm where they offer interpretation and translation services, and they just keep on expanding. You have organizations like Casa de la Cultura that also, start with an art focused, and then all of a sudden you expand and grow and offer a lot of different supports and resources. In Kentucky, over the past decade, have remained per capita consistently in the top 5 states in the country. And that spanned different administrations in Frankfurt, because we recognize the importance of immigrants to our communities. We recognize the importance of immigrants to our economy. Numbers-wise, our largest population, of course, is Spanish speakers. A lot of people, rightfully so, assume that a majority of the Spanish-speaking populations come from Mexico. We also have quite large populations from Honduras and Guatemala. Also, kind of, within the past decade, we've had an influx from Cuba. After when we're thinking, a lot of times people in our community think through these groups through the different language groups that we have. So, of course, you have English, Spanish, then you have Swahili.
This is something that always trips people up, that Swahili is the third most spoken language in Lexington. I love this.
Absolutely.
Please keep telling us more.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Swahili is our third most common language in Lexington. And interesting enough, this is a broader conversation about sometimes the impact of different political trends on societies, honestly, is that when I first came to Lexington, Arabic was the third most common language. And funny enough, well, I guess not funny enough, that's the wrong term. When I moved here and when my brother was here, my parents came here for a little bit. And at the beginning, having a lot of family in Boston, we told them, Mom, Dad, are you sure you want to be moving with us to Lexington? I don't know that you're going to be able to find anyone to speak Arabic to. Then shame on us, coming in, being ignorant, not knowing the makeshift of the community. We came to learn that there was a very big, robust, thriving Arabic-speaking community in Lexington, and that Arabic was the third most common spoken language in Lexington at the time. Now, after 2016, with what was called at the time the Muslim ban and some restrictions on immigrations and admissions for folks from certain countries, a lot of those countries spoke Arabic. And so even though that particular decision got repealed in 2021, before getting reinstated again in 2025, even in the 2021 to 2025 period, those numbers kind of never rebounded. And so during that time, Swahili overcame Arabic as our third most common spoken language in our community. And something that I've also learned, again, shame on me, I didn't know that, there's a big difference even in Swahili between the eastern side of the Congo and the western side of the Congo. Because oftentimes people assume, well, a lot of the populations that we have in our community, they're from Congo, they speak Swahili. Well, Congo is a country of 90 million people. And so sometimes if you speak, if you're from the eastern side of the country or the western side of the country, you actually may have trouble understanding each other. I've experienced that growing up, speaking Arabic. Folks in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, they spoke Arabic too. but when they would be interviewed on the news would have to put on subtitles because it's hard for some folks to understand that dialect. But these are our top 4 languages in our community. Then afterward, we have Nepali, we have French, we have Kinyarwanda, Japanese, Mandarin Chinese, Haitian Creole, and Portuguese. These are our top 11 languages in our community.
It's incredible. And we see this everywhere around town. So
Exactly.
can you talk a little bit more about the maps and the council districts, that this isn't like immigrants, our language speaking is not, just in as you mentioned, the 11th, that being the village area or just in the north, like it's the whole town.
Exactly. Yeah, I so appreciate that point because I love I have a lot of favorite people in Lexington, and for valid reasons, because there's a lot of amazing people in Lexington. And some of my favorite people in Lexington are the folks who work at the Marksbury branch of the public library on the west side of town of Alexandria Drive. They do incredible work. That library have an amazing 3D printer that you can go use for free and print all sort of awesome stuff. They have a whole art station. It's incredible, and there's a lot of great programming, and there's a lot of community outreach efforts that happen there, and I love that. I want to support it. I want to expand it. And to that point, that's not where all the immigrants are. So it's not enough to only do that at Marksbury, because when we zoom out and look at the city, our 1st and 12th district, per that data, which is from August of 23, so it's not too recent, but it's not too old either, these were our 2 council districts with the most number of immigrants. So it is important to focus our outreach. Oftentimes when we work with different city divisions, something when we point out to them when they ask us, we want to do this program, what are some of the top languages, who should we reach out to? We ask them, well, are you doing a community-wide program or running a community-wide initiative? Because we can tell you. Or are you targeting this at a specific part of town? So you're doing something at the Charles Young Center, or you're doing something at the Black and Williams Center, or you're doing something at the Wimbert Community Center. Because if you tell me where, I can tell you who are the language groups there, who are there the most. And that's one of the things that going back to the point about Fayette County Public Schools, which I appreciate about them, is they created Families Connection Centers. And they have them across town. So they have 3. They have one on the north side at Consolidated Baptist Church. They have one downtown at the old district building. And the location of the 3rd one is escaping me. But then they're able to kind of target the outreach, the services at different locations to the demographics of that group. And it's very important to be intentional in offering those services, whether it is we're offering certain programming. I know we've talked about all the amazing things that are coming up in May. One of them is AAPI Heritage Month, Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And the culminating event for that is a beautiful celebration that takes place at the Moondance Amphitheater on May 30th. And so that part of town is very heavy with people with AAPI heritage. And so that's why, one of the reasons, not the only reason, but that I would assume is one of the reasons why the organizers usually pick that particular part of town to do it. Whereas you're having, sometimes some other celebrations for other subgroups that maybe a different part of town can make sense more for. Or if you're doing a specific outreach event, especially now with certain changes in eligibility requirements for certain federal programs, for folks who maybe were reliant on receiving certain type of programs under certain eligibility criteria that they're no longer eligible for, all of a sudden, they may need help from other organizations that historically they haven't needed to work for. So that relationship between the organizations and the group of individuals isn't there. And so it's very important to be intentional about those outreach and access efforts.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about how Global X goes about that intentionality and the ways that you bring some of these organizations together?
Absolutely. I mean, thank you for that question. Talking about Global X. One of the first things that became clear to me, quite honestly, is that if I was to ask 5 different people, what does Global X does, I would get 5 different answers. And that's because there's a lot of need. And so some people see Global X as a very internal organization that's focused primarily on supporting different LFUCG divisions and departments, which I suppose, let me like back up and say we are part of city governments, because some people sometimes assume we're even like our own nonprofit or a 501c3. No, we are part of city government. It's quite honestly quite impressive that Global Lex celebrated its 10 years anniversary last year. Global Lex was established back when former Mayor Jim Gray was mayor, when current Mayor Linda Gorton was on council. And establishing a center like that back then in a city our size really speak to our values. Really, we as a community, we deserve a round of applause for that. Because when we look sometimes at even larger cities and larger communities in our country, they've established similar centers much later than we did Global Lex. So some people look at us and say, okay, Global Lex, you're part of city government, you work a lot with the city. Other people look at us and say, no, Global Lex, you're the engagement, you're working with the communities primarily. Other people see us as a piece of language access. We do a little bit of everything, and I would say primarily we're the connectors. We're that connective tissue that connect different divisions, different communities, different service providers, different organizations together. And we do that with 5 focus areas. So we are open to the public Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. If folks need any resources, if folks need any referrals, they can come to us. One of our amazing liaisons and language access specialists can help them with that. We also have our own permanent gallery. We currently have a gorgeous exhibit in partnership with the Korean American Society of Kentucky. And it's so special because it's the private collection of the local community here in Lexington. There are pieces from it from the 1600s in our space. It is so beautiful. So people can come check the art. People can come and request support services. Whether that's how can I get a mortgage, to how can I access certain services. How can I get food assistance, or how can I get a loan so I can bring the next Toyota to our community? We also offer a lot of education programming. So we do a lot of classes around civic engagement, naturalizations, language acquisition, digital literacy. We also do a lot of workshops in the community in partnership with other divisions around landlord and tenant rights, around public safety, anything and everything you can think of. Next in early May, we're doing an event in partnership with the UK Hemp Lab, for example, about disability and aging and dementia, and in partnership with a lot of organizations. We also do a lot of arts and cultural events, like the Korean exhibit that I've talked about. We support a lot of the cultural events across town. Get Happy is an amazing organization that does a lot of AAPI programming. Like I mentioned, they're the organizations who oversee that celebration at Moondance. And they're doing multiple events throughout May. So we support efforts like that. We support Swahili Day. We support DiverCity, one of my favorite days of the year in Lexington. It's on May 23rd. Again, it speaks to how beautiful our community is. DiverCity, our largest public street festival celebrating different cultures, started as a Leadership Lex class project. And it was a group of people from different sectors who are part of this leadership development program with a focus on business and developing leadership skills. And they're like, we have a beautiful community. Let's celebrate it. Let's dance. Let's eat. Let's sing. And that's something we do. And then we also support local government, of course, like I said, with program design, outreach strategy, and then with developing the city's Title VI plan, which says that any entity receiving federal funding cannot discriminate based on national origin. National origin involving your actual ethnicity, your perceived ethnicity, your country of birth, the languages you speak, your English fluency. And whether you are an organization or an entity that receive federal funds directly or indirectly, so even if you get city grants, by Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, you have to support language, what we call LEPs, limited English proficient individuals in the legal terms of Title VI, to provide free language services and meaningful access to your programs. And that's part of maintaining, quite honestly, millions of dollars of funding to the organizations and the city itself. So we are that arm that helps the city with developing the plans, building the compliance around that piece.
And so now I want to come see the art.
Please.
Where do we go to come see the art?
So it is at Global Lex. We are on Versailles Road. Our address is 1306 Versailles Road, Suite 110. Oftentimes, people know us as our plazas where the recycling center is.
Oh,
And so please come see the art, because my goal is for people to say, you know where the recycling center? It's where Global Lex is. Not, do you know where Global Lex is? It's where the recycling center.
Yes, absolutely. You've talked about a couple of the big events coming up in May. Are there other things you'd like the community to know about?
Absolutely. Let me think. There's a lot of cool things coming up. So I've talked about Swahili Day. That's June 13. I've talked about the API Heritage Month programming. Something that's very near and dear to, and I talked about DiverCity Festival. That's May 23rd, Memorial Day weekend, noon to 7 p.m. Look for the Global Lex Village. We'll have about 10 organizations representing different cultures, offering a lot of amazing goodies, educational resources, interactive activities. There's going to be great food, lots of fun, great stage performances. There's just a ton of incredible stuff happening at DiverCity. Then something that's very near and dear to my heart as well, that's a little bit later on, it's coming in June, is the Kentucky Immigrant and Refugee Inclusion Summit. This one is more directly geared toward service providers to immigrants. It's, I believe, in its 12th year this year, and it's organized by Fayette County Public Schools and Kentucky Refugee Ministries. We're honored to support it this year. And there's a lot of incredible programming that happens at CRIS. People from across the state come to CRIS to receive legal updates, learn best practices about engaging with immigrant communities, hear from community-based organizations like Marafiki about their incredible work. This year, we're actually partnering with the League of Women Voters and the County Clerk's Office to even do an election day simulation during CRIS, during lunch. Because I remember, as someone who grew up under an authoritarian regime, even though I moved to the US as an adult full-time, the first time I voted was in the US, because I've always felt like it was a wash to vote somewhere when I knew no one was counting the votes. And coming into election day, that was I was so excited about it, and it was such a moment of pride. But I remember that the emotion that I remember from that day was confusion, because I went in, I knew where my precinct was. I showed up, I saw like a sign that says voting. It was at church, so I was like, okay. I walked in, I saw an American flag, and I was like, okay, I think I'm in the right place. But I wasn't sure, do I go right, do I go left? Eventually, I found where I'm supposed to go. Then I went and I saw this like weird looking machine that seemed like it's from Back to the Future. And I stood there and I was like, I think I'm doing it right. Let me Google it. Wait, am I allowed to pull out my phone here? I don't know. And so, even though I like to consider myself an averagely civically engaged person, there was a lot of those moments in that process that left me with that feeling of confusion. And so one of the super awesome things that are going to be happening at CRIS for the first time this year is this simulation of election day, what that looks like, what the ballots look like. The county clerk's office were very generous in providing even a certain number of sample ballots and some of the voting machines that are going to be there, so people are able to engage and make sure they know, and they're not having that feeling of confusion. There's only that feeling of pride, because this is our community, and we, and we're so proud to be in this community, and we want to have a say in what this community looks like.
That shout out to Susan Lamb.
Yep.
Yes, shout out to Susan Lamb.
She's been our guest before, has she not?
Susan is
incredible.
Yes, Susan is on the board of the museum, just to be completely transparent. But that's incredible.
I don't think you can find a single person in Lexington who won't tell you Susan Lamb is an incredible person. Again, one of my favorite people. I have lots of them. Yeah. Because we're an incredible community full of beautiful people.
One other thing you mentioned earlier, and I think about a lot as a historian, and something that in a past life I was working on before I came back to run the museum. You talked about naturalization, that you help with folks get naturalized and be a part of that. Those ceremonies are so powerful. One, do we have one coming up? And two, if there are people in the community who either want to go through the process or who are, were born citizens or whatever it may be and want to know more about helping support the naturalization process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Thank you for this question. One of my favorite things to talk about. And sadly, a little bit of a pain point to me as well. As someone who is a naturalized citizen who went through that process, I had to go do my interview in Louisville. I had to take my oath of citizenship in Louisville. And as someone who adores and loves this community, I hated that I had to drive an hour. I mean, love Louisville, don't get me wrong, but
It's okay if you don't on this podcast.
No, go Cats.
Yes.
It's not home.
Right.
And at a moment like that, I was supposed to do my oath of citizenship at home. Sadly, we don't have any upcoming big ones like that in our community. Something that the League of Women Voters have been doing a lot of incredible work on is helping to bring in those ceremonies to be here in person, because they are beautiful and they are so powerful. And there's nothing more American than seeing a group of people stand next to each other, speak in different languages, praying for different gods or choosing not to pray, and having different skin tones, and just standing into each other saying we are one community. And what brings us together is it's not the language we speak or how we pray. It's that we want to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. This is what America is. And so you see America at its best, at its most, at naturalization ceremonies. And that's not, of course, taking away anything from those who aren't naturalized citizens themselves, because they are the product of what you were sharing earlier, the previous generations who went through that process. It's just that the most American thing is people coming together and saying, it's not how we're born that bring us together, it's how we're choosing to live life, what makes us one. So yes, they're incredible, they're so powerful. Sadly, we were hoping to have one in the spring that would be at the courthouse, and the League of Women Voters was working on securing volunteers and just making it a big celebratory day. We're hoping the day can be set into the future. We don't have one set right now. As folks who are interested in kind of volunteering, supporting folks as they get into the nationalization process, a conflict of interest disclaimer on my side, this end, I serve on the board of an organization I like to think is incredible, and it's called the New Americans Initiative. And that is part of the mission of NAI, New Americans Initiative. We do legal clinics. We had one last month in partnership with KRM here in Lexington, where we helped 49 individuals complete their green card applications, so they get on the path to become citizens. Once they become citizens, NAI also does a lot of voter engagement. No one has ever knocked on my door canvassing since I've lived here, and I've always found it odd.
We need to send some people your way then.
I know. I'm always like, please knock on my door. I'm having canvassing FOMO. And something I've learned recently that I found quite interesting. A number of years ago, I did canvassing myself for the first time, and we had access to some of like the canvassing apps that uses some of like the voter data. And honestly, it was a little bit creepy of being able, before you even like knock on the door, you're like, in this household, per voter data, here's demographics, here's what happened in these houses. And I've always wondered, is the reason people aren't knocking on my door that they just assume like I'm an immigrant, so maybe I don't vote, or that immigrants don't vote? I don't know. I'm like, y'all, knock on my door. Not if you're selling stuff, but if you want to, don't let me have canvassing FOMO.
Well, we will send people your way.
Please.
It's a big year.
It is.
It's a big year for Lexington, and that's really fascinating. So I worked for the state for a long time before I came back for the museum, and one of the things before the pandemic I was working on was this idea of around the 19th Amendment, but thinking about that larger and what that means to Kentucky and how Kentucky has dealt with election change over the years. And the culminating event was going to be a naturalization ceremony. And obviously then it was the pandemic and things changed and it didn't happen. But what's so incredible, I think, and you've talked about this a lot, but just to put a really fine point on it, so many of our organizations around town, throughout the state, throughout the country, are tied into that civic mission. And so you can find, for our listeners who maybe are traveling this summer, a number of places throughout the country partner with their local agencies and with U.S. immigration and naturalization folks to have ceremonies on their grounds, because there's maybe, if that's the most American thing that we can do, doing that at a museum, particularly a history museum, makes it some of the most meaningful and powerful, because you're sitting in a space that its whole job is to tell the entirety of their community, and here are new folks to your community that you get to share that with. And that was so, like, you know, I have FOMO for all of the organizations that get to do that and get to be a part of it, because our job, you mentioned that you want folks who come to see you to see a bit of themselves, regardless of who they are.
Absolutely.
That's the same for the museum. We want folks who come to Lexington, if they just got off a plane or they just drove into town from 75, or if they've been here for 9 generations, that they see a little bit of themselves and that they learn about Lexington and exactly the things you're talking about. So it's an incredible synthesis to bring that together and to think about that.
And the story of immigration is, again, it's all of our stories. I remember a bit over a year ago, Neighbors Immigration Clinic, another great organization doing a lot of great work in our community, they were organizing some trainings and workshops. And one of the activities that they did was telling the immigration story and history of America. Honestly, it was quite a wonderful team building exercise. We each got different kind of pieces of legislations or things that have happened without the years. And we had a big board, and we needed to work as a team. Great corporate and nonprofit team building exercise. We had to work as a team to be able to do the timeline and do it in the right order. And it's, you know, of course, it's woven within the fabric of our country, of our land. And you look at the story of every immigrant family. I take 10 minutes to answer each question, so I'm gonna not give you my whole family's like immigrant backstory, but we trace our heritage to current southern day Turkey. And during the Armenian genocide of 1915, around World War I, at the time, both my mom and side branches of the family, they fled south to Syria. And at the time, my maternal grandpa's brother came to the U.S. back on Ellis Island. They resettled in Jersey. My maternal grandpa had like good private life in Syria, never had a reason to leave, and he stayed. Then his children, one came in 1970 or like around that time, one came in the early 90s, and then my mom and my aunt stayed behind. Then now me and my siblings are here, my parents came here. My aunt is the only one of that generation who stayed in Syria with one of her sons, and now she has a daughter in Sweden and a daughter here in DC. At this point, we're fully expecting that my cousin's children will be coming here. And so again, it's the same family, it's the same DNA that have came to the U.S. since the early 1900s. And any person, even if they were a 7th generation Lexingtonian, and they graduated Dunbar, and they're like, no, Dunbar is better than Lafayette, and Go Creek, and Station, the pride of the North Side, and all the different, again, the Lexington high school conversations. At some point, the family came from somewhere,
Right.
and we all share that. That is the most American thing that we all share.
Oh, that's beautiful and so true, and exactly what makes Lexington so much of what we bring in, and we see it everywhere. Just want to highlight a couple of things for you that I've seen and we've seen in the future,
Yes.
and that are in this and relate to the podcast. So we saw you, Global X walked for St. Patrick's Day, and we had Megan on and for St. Patrick's Day.
Love Megan.
Truly, this town.
One of my favorite people. Exactly.
We need a new segment, Alan.
Well,
One of my favorite people.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We're going to call it Basel's favorite people.
I would love that.
Every
Let
time.
me feature one of my favorite people once a week.
Yes!
There's a lot of them.
I
We'll
love
have season, talk about soap operas.
Yeah. The friends groups around town, there are a number of friends groups that we've worked with in the museum and we've seen that do incredible work, International Friends International, a couple of the others. And then personally for me, my children go to a school where 25 languages are spoken.
Wow.
So the work that Fayette County does in making that school feel like one school, even though there are 25 languages spoken within the school, is just incredible. And so my children have never known a world that wasn't a world where Lexington had an immigrant community and a time where their friends had these different traditions and they bring it and they celebrate it. And it's just an incredible piece to know that city government is behind that and the schools and the work that we're doing, and that it is this very long history of finding that space within Fayette County.
Absolutely. You're 1,000% right. And I love, to what you said, I love the schools. Like I mentioned earlier, we've had Global Lex for over 10 years, which is really incredible for a city our size. Even with the schools, the schools have an incredible multilingual ambassador program. That was a program I was involved with in the past. Many people have contributed and done a lot of incredible things to expand it and grow it throughout the years. And we've had that in different iterations since 2016. I remember about 3 years ago or something, I was in one of the leading national conferences around this topic, and there were people from New York State who were developing a similar program there. And when they learned about this program, they were like, oh my God, we want to be in touch. We're building something like this. We want to talk. And I was like, oh my God, we've had this for 7 years in New York State as well. We're building some of that at the state level. So we've always been this community that whether you're Syrian, whether you're Congolese, whether you're Irish, whether you're Italian, again, we at some point in time, part of our DNA, part of our powerhouse of the cell, part of our mitochondria came here. And then we said, you know what? I love horses. I love the bluegrass. I love this community. I love Picnic with the Pops. Go Cats! Let's go Cats together.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find Global X on Versailles Road.
Correct.
Not the recycling center. You're going to Global X.
Yes, please.
You can recycle if you want.
You can recycle if you want, but
Please recycle while you're at it. Yes, love the recycling center. Don't get me wrong.
one of the featured folks will be the recycling center.
Exactly.
At
One of my
some
favorite people.
You can get involved with AAPI month through Get Happy. You can the DiverCity Festival on the Courthouse Square on May 23rd, and you'll see so much work around town. And please, when you see Basel, say hello, because he maybe is my favorite person right now in Lexington.
Well, you're too kind. Yes, please say hello. Would love to say hello to all the people. Love making new friends. And yeah, thank you for having me, Mandy. You're incredible. Thank you for your incredible work on the History Museum. You all, this podcast, the incredible work you all have done with the Women's History Project. I've met so many incredible women who themselves were part of that project, people who are near and dear to them who were part of that project. A lot of my favorite people were involved, and so happy and so proud of that. And I love that the museum is doing this. I love all the programming that you all are doing. I love the intersectional lens in which you approach the work. So yeah, thank you for all you do. Thank you for having me. And hope to see you around town, everyone, our dear listeners, and many of our amazing festivals and happenings in the spring. There's a lot of great things happening around town. So hope to see you there. Please say hello.
Yeah, Basel, we're just getting started. I mean, we're into the spring, and spring becomes summer, and next thing you know, man, we're all over it, and you'll be all over it, of course. Is there a website that people can visit for more information?
Yes, there is. Thank you so much for that question, Alan. Yes, there is. You can go to, I mean, we're part of, just look Global X. We recently revamped our website. And for some reason, I cannot get rid of the old page. So sometimes it says so on Google. Make sure you're on the most updated one. If you go on the LFUCG website and search us, it will also show Global X. You can also find us on both Instagram and Facebook. Please follow us. We are at Global Lexington on Instagram, and we are Global Lexington on Facebook because Global Lex was taken. Who knew there were so many Global Lexes?
Well, it could be in Lexington, Massachusetts, right? And some other Lexingtons, right?
There are,
I got a phone call recently.
A story.
A museum-related story. So Lexington, Massachusetts, of course, is where our name came from.
We are the better Lexington, though.
We are, and always. But God, sweet Lexington History Museum in Massachusetts was doing some cool event to mark the Battle of Lexington and Concord, and some person called me and was like, "Hey, I wanted to make sure there was parking by the reenactment for the battle," and I was like, "Can I ask where you're calling from?" And they were like, "Oh, Massachusetts," and I said, "Okay. Well, if you're in Lexington, Kentucky, there are 18 lovely parking spots next to our building.
Yeah.
There will not be a reenactment, but we will give you a great time and a great tour of
love
Lexington history." And they were so sweet. The callers were like, "Oh, we love Lexington, Kentucky.
I love that.
But yeah, we want to see the battle." And I was like, "Okay, wow."
Well,
I hope they did.
I hope they did too. They should call me back.
Call the board members. We're not doing anything.
Yeah.
We put on the costumes.
There you go.
Exactly.
Stand on Gratz Park and see what happens.
I think we all secretly have a little fantasy about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I've always wanted to do one of those reenactments.
You can go down the Battle of Richmond.
There you go. All right, Mandy. Before we say goodbye for the month, the hours again for the museum.
Thursdays and Fridays, 12 to 4. Saturdays, 10 to 4. And by appointment, Monday through Saturday. Bring your students. It's big time, end of the year. Get through those KSA assessments and come see us.
And June, we have a beat on what we're going to talk about in June.
June is really exciting for Lexington. For many, many years, the city has been working to get an EJI memorial put up, and that is happening on June 20th to honor Mr. RCO Benjamin, who you've heard about on this podcast in the past. And so we will have some to-be-named guests to come hang out with us and talk a little bit about the ceremony, about the work to get this marker, and of course about the incredible history of Mr. Benjamin and his impact in Lexington.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for all of us coming together today, and we will see you very, very soon on the next episode of Lex Talk History.
You've been listening to Lex Talk History, a monthly podcast produced in collaboration with WUKY and the Lexington History Museum. Subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts, or download Lex Talk History from the podcast page at WUKY.org. And if you haven't done so already, please make plans to visit the Lexington History Museum soon. Get started on your tour at lexhistory.org.